Hey, Renter Tires, it's Adam Schroeder here with another episode, joined as usual by Zach Lemaster, the founder and CEO of Renter Retirement. And we are really happy to be joined by one of our investors. His name is Lawrence. Lawrence, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, we're going to start with you the same place we start with everyone. Tell us about your first real estate deal. How'd you get into the field, and what about it made you decide to stay in it?
So I've actually been in the industry for coming up on, I think, like 9 years now. I was in escrow before in Southern California. It's a little bit different. We have independent escrow companies. I was a sales rep for an escrow company, and now I actually work for a title company as a sales rep. So I've been in the field for quite some time and know quite a bit about it. I've watched, as I'm sure a lot of people on here too, I've watched, the podcasts and read the books and done all that stuff. But then finally got into it back in 2020, end of 2020. Got into flipping properties out in Atlanta actually with some friends and did a couple of those. We did two of those, one in 2020 and one in 2021. And then I took a step back from that team and I was looking to possibly get into it again and trying to find some ideas. And my work life just is so busy and hectic. I'm a sales manager out here now. And so I have a lot of people that I'm, managing in time. So I tried to figure out what was the best route, and I came across Rent Retirement. And I've looked you guys up actually for a few years, and I was doing some background, watching the podcasts, and I've seen a bunch of your stuff. And finally, I decided, hey, this is the year I'm going to take the plunge, which was last year. And I bought a place out in Akron, Ohio, through you guys, a single family residence. And yeah, that's the process. I met with someone, Tommy on your team actually, so I had my first call with, and he gave me a kind of a background and how Rent Retirement worked and the process. And yeah, that's where I started.
So you were in the game for sounds like about 6 years before you really started actually, getting into flipping or investing in any way, shape, or form. What
Yeah.
took you so long? Was it just a capital thing, or what took you so long to take the step? I mean, you were there watching all these real estate investors, watching owners, all of that. So what finally put you over and made you decide, I'm gonna actually get into this as opposed
I
to just
always
watching people?
I always wanted to. I always knew that it was something I wanted to get into, and I'd invested in the stock market and done things like that, obviously. But it was the fear, and I was really nervous about doing it. And that's what helped when I did my first flips in Atlanta. Is we had a team, and then I was coming up in my career, so I didn't have as much capital like you're talking about. So I only had a little bit to invest. So that first couple flips that we did, we partnered with multiple people and pulled some money together in order to get the capital to do the first investment and get a hard money loan and then to start that process. So it was a little bit of a mix. It was a mix of the fear. And then once I had a team around me, a group of people that wanted to do the same thing, that helped me. And then the capital as well, because I only had a little bit of capital invest. So once we were able to pull our capital together, it helped me, to get to the threshold that we need to be to in order to actually invest that money too.
Lawrence, I definitely want to talk about title because that's something we really haven't talked a lot about. It's just like the how title works, the importance of having their title, some issues that can come up since you're in the business. But I want to just dive a little deeper into your starting experience. So you did a couple flips in Atlanta. Did those turn out well? Were they successful?
Oh,
Because a lot of times they're not, but
yeah.
you were.
That's true. They were very successful. I mean, the returns on them, I was shocked when the returns that we were able to get, but also I thought about it, it's in the middle of 2020, 21. We have that boom in appreciation. The rates are so low, so it's easy to get the funds that you need. And, you buy something 1 month and 3 months later, 6 months later, the appreciation you've gained on it is more than you even originally priced in for your selling point on the flip. So it was easier times, I feel like, when it came to that and getting those, but they worked out really well. We had good boots on the ground that help, which again, Rent Retirement does as well, has really good boots on the ground, which makes you confident in doing the process. But yeah, that's what helped tremendously.
So, and I'm glad you called that out because we talk about like trying not to time the market, and that's generally in like long-term buy and hold real estate, which we'll talk about next. But yeah, in flipping, like timing is everything. I mean, I bought some houses that I didn't do any work to, and we flipped them because the market, right? But
Right.
we're not in those times now.
Yes.
But why you made a transition? So you had a couple of really good successful flips. Granted, it was during a good time, but your next investment, which you made through our network, was a buy and hold property. So what made that change? What like transitioned into buy and hold real estate
Mhm.
versus the flips?
The buy and hold was always the goal. The flips I was trying to do to build more capital, because obviously if you can do them successfully, you can build up some capital relatively quickly, and you're building up that. So my goal was always to get to the buy and hold stage. And again, I stepped away from the team that I did those couple flips with, and it's funny because I tried to do it again in the beginning of 2020. We started to do it again with a couple other people that I know, and we were looking at it. And like you're talking about timing the market, you don't really want to, but when it comes to flips, I saw the creep up in interest rates, the market start to slow down. And I told them, I said, I don't think that this is like the best time for us to be jumping into some of these flips, because if these rates jump, the houses that we're flipping are right in that, that median and average price point for these homes where people, it has a large buyer pool. But if these rates spike, they're not going to be able to afford these houses the same way. So that's going to hurt what we think our profit's going to be. So then I stopped on that. And I was trying to think of what was going to be being a manager now. I was a sales rep at the time, so I had a lot more flexibility then than I did now. And so I said, I don't have a lot of time. I got 2 little kids. I have to figure out what's the best strategy for me with the least amount of time that I have to necessarily put into it. And that's, again, when I came to the buy and hold through rent to retirement.
Hey, you talk about the team that you have, and we build teams in every market. It's not the easiest thing at all in the world to do. But those people who are out there trying to build up their network, trying to build their team, what advice do you have for them? Because, especially it's kind of crazy, you being in California, you decided my first flip's going to be in Atlanta because I trust my team there. That's, you want to talk about kind of the getting over a risk factor or a fear factor. I mean, you just jumped right into the deep end of 40-degree water.
Yeah.
So how are you able to successfully build a team like that? Were you using specific, networks, finding people? Did you just know somebody through your title companies? Like how did you find that team?
So a buddy in the real estate industry, he's an agent out here, and he reached out to me. He said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this out in Atlanta. I have a friend who is from Atlanta who invests with this real estate agent that he grew up out there. This is what they're doing. I said, those numbers sound too good to be true. I was like, there's no way that these houses are going for that and they're able to flip and get that kind of profit. And he's like, well, fly out with me this weekend. I'm going to go out. So we took a trip out there. Went out there for a weekend, met the agent, met the closing attorney. She drove us around to a ton of projects that she had done, to ones that were, potential buys for us and things like that, and showed us a ton of things that were on the market. And my eyes started to open up. And if you're familiar with Atlanta, you know about the Beltline that they're building out there. And she took us to some restaurants that were on it and showing how things were up and coming. She talked about her investment strategy in these different areas. And in doing that, I saw the vision and what it really was turning into. And I looked at the numbers, I looked at the demographics and everything like that, obviously the job growth and what was in the area. And I was like, wow, this is the real deal. And she was able to provide her numbers and what she was doing previously. So by going there myself and like physically touching it, seeing it and talking to the people, that really built that trust level into it when we were looking at these properties. And we were cautious on the properties that we did buy. There was a lot that we turned down and said, no, we're not going to go after these ones. And we were very specific in our kind of buy box that we wanted to go after, as well as we were conservative in our numbers too. So we didn't want to get over aggressive and say, oh, we're going to make all this money. We want to be very conservative. What's the worst case scenario? If everything goes wrong, can we hold on to these properties? So we did a lot of research and met the people, which helped a lot.
Yeah, that's huge, and it is all about the team. Well, I want to talk about your long-term buy and hold team, because there's people that in each one of these, I guess they're specialties, right? They're subject matter experts that are important, and really putting together like your dream team of all those key people is essential for success, and understanding when you have someone lacking, how to replace them and things like that. But you've had a lot of success with your first. You did a couple flips. You've had a buy and hold, which I understand is doing very well for you as well. So, you're fortunate and smart in this, that you've approached it the right way, Lawrence. But not everyone has 3 successful properties for especially when you're talking about the game, right? But I think you've been meticulous in your approach. And we are familiar with Atlanta. We did some townhomes and some new development in Union City, which I think is just southwest to like East Point in that area, and done quite well with those. Now, when we evaluate Atlanta, though, it is hard to cash flow generally, and when we're looking at a long-term hold scenario. But I want to back up and just talk about your mindset with, again, going back to the buy and hold. So yes, that you understand that is a little bit more of a challenging market and risky market right now to potentially do flips, that will potentially change in the future, and be conscious of that. Even though you're being successful, see, a lot of people just keep going down that path as long as they can, right? Until they start to have some unfortunate scenarios or properties that don't work out. But why? Again, I just want to understand deeper, like why buy and hold real estate? You said that was always a goal. Like why is that the goal? Why do you want to hold real estate long term if you're having these successful flips and things like that?
I've always wanted to do, I like what I do. I do very good at what I do. And I talk to some of my friends all the time about how I have that entrepreneurial spirit and there's things that I want to do, but I laugh because I'm good at corporate America. So I don't want to ignore the fact that I'm good at corporate America, but long term, what I want to do is I really want to build a large real estate portfolio so that I can do kind of what I want, when I want, with my family, enjoy that time and stuff. So I want to be able to have that income come in that's replacing it. So I'm 33 years old. So as I continue to do this and build this up, like how quickly can I build this portfolio to maybe take my foot off the gas if I want to, or maybe change, or maybe step away from something like this. I don't know if that's what I'll end up doing eventually, but I want to be able to build that income, and I don't want to have to depend on Social Security when I'm older, or only my 401k when I'm older, things like that. I want to have these assets long term that gives me the ability to do that. The flipping thing is good, I think, building capital, and I'll probably do flips again once I figure out an area and a team that I want to do that with. But the stability of having these long-term buy and holds that are appreciating, that are bringing in cash flow, that's replacing income and things like that, like that's the main kind of goal and what I want to trend towards and buy some of my time back, really, is what I want it to be.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And a lot of people, I think, when they think about real estate investing, they get attracted to the flipping side of it because that is the attractive side. A lot of times, that's the shiny object, and the thing that everyone, I think, kind of wants to jump into after watching HGTV or whatever, and it can be really successful. But when I think about real estate investing, to me, it's buy and hold real estate. When I think about like flipping and wholesaling, I think about that more as like that's a business. That's another way to generate capital. Just like you mentioned, right? It's a way to build capital that ideally you would transition into buy and hold real estate. So that capital that you made can pay you forever. But there's some people that are really good at, like you said, corporate America, or they're better at generating money doing just their profession or whatever that case is. And it's all about generating the capital and then putting it into the buy and hold real estate. So it really doesn't matter where the capital comes from. I think, though, when people think about real estate investing, they get distracted on some of these shiny objects. And it's like, maybe you're not the best flipper out there, then maybe that doesn't work out well. So anyways, I get on my side tangents. Let's talk about how you found Rent to Retirement and like why you decided to go with us. There's a lot of different ways you can invest in real estate. There's a lot of different ways you can invest in buy and hold real estate across the country. But it sounds like you had, been investigating and doing due diligence and educating yourself for a couple years maybe, but like, why did you decide to go kind of the turnkey route, through our network?
Yeah, I forget when I found you guys exactly. It was years and years ago. I think probably even before I was doing the flips, I found you guys, and I was looking at the website and trying to figure it out. And I think it was before you had to enter, like your email name and phone number to look at the inventory and stuff like that. And I was like looking up different inventories and seeing what you guys had. And I like everything that was on there together, where it came to the performas, when it came to, you could look at the different scenarios as far as you could change the interest rate and change what the insurance is, and it would calculate everything for you. It made this process really simple. And then I looked up other ones, and there's other turnkey companies that focus on maybe a specific city or a specific, county or something like that through the United States. I like that you guys had the ability to go in multiple different markets throughout the United States, depending on what you were looking for, whether it was new builds, whether it was multifamily, whether it was, $100,000 or $500,000. There was a bunch of different options in different states and stuff. So I really like that about Rent to Retirement. And when I went on there and I was looking through, and when I had the call with Tommy, and he was kind of telling me the process and how smooth that it was, and was telling me, here's the lenders that you can talk to. We help you out with, these are some good insurance companies. Here's some good inspectors. Like, we help you through the entire process. I was really shocked at the amount that you guys give to us to help us figure everything out. That's what really drew me in, especially after I had my call with him. And it's funny because it sounds almost too good to be true. I'm like, you guys really provide all this information? You help us walk through the process. You'll connect us with someone who can help us create an LLC. Like, you guys are really, when it comes down to it, a one-stop shop that has all of it. And that really made you stand out. And the ease of your website and stuff like that too really helped too.
Did you, as you were evaluating the markets that we had, I mean, I know y'all had your buy box whenever you were, doing flips, but a little bit, why did you choose the market that you went into? Kind of, did you and Tommy have conversations about kind of the teams and all of that? And kind of, how did you hone in on the market that you ended up buying in?
Yeah, like I mentioned before too, about being really conservative about my numbers and stuff like that. I had a nice bit of cash saved up that I knew I wanted to invest, and I wanted to be conservative, and I didn't want to overextend myself. And like, if you're buying a single family residence for your own self, you don't want to be house poor. A lot of people say, like, I didn't want that to happen with my investment property. Also, I wanted to get into something that I knew was manageable, and if I didn't have a tenant for months, I knew I could afford the mortgage payment, no problem, myself, if I had to, or any maintenance that comes up or anything. So I was talking to him, hey, I have this amount of money to invest. What's something that I can do? He's like, well, if you look at these couple areas, here's something that you might want to look at. These different states actually Ohio being one of them. If you use this special credit union, then you can put 5% down instead of, the 25% down. That'll help you get into it. And I was like, well, I can do that because I can afford what the negative cash flow will be on that. It allows me to keep more of my capital. The interest rate's fine because I know as time goes on, if it's this year, if it's next year, I can always refinance the property itself and get a lower rate because I'll have the cash saved up to do so. And I have that cash saved up in case of an emergency or if it's something happens with my job or anything like that. So the price and barrier for entry, along with when I started researching Ohio and seeing the job market, the strong renter market, the rent to sales price ratio as well, things like that really attracted me to it. And it was one of those few states that was in a reasonable place where I wouldn't feel like I overextended myself on my first deal too.
Very interesting. You talked about a lot just briefly in your experience that I want to make sure the audience caught. So you bought a property with 5% down in Ohio. Is that what I'm understanding? And so,
correct.
And that's not available in all states. Again, this is a credit union that offers a 5% down loan. You still have to have very good financials and credit score. You have to qualify for them. Why would you do that, Lawrence? Because I think you said you were maybe slightly negative cash flow with 5%, which, you would expect if you have a loan for 95% and you're not putting 25% down,
right.
But it also allows you to take less capital into one deal and maybe ultimately, own more real estate over time. But talk to me about just that whole process, how things have been going for you, and why you did the 5% down, and like how that property is performing. Like what is the strategy there?
Yeah. Again, like I mentioned, I wanted to make sure that I kept some cash on the side. So I had some, reserves and things, and I had a strong enough reserves as it was, but I didn't want to put that much money into the property itself and have it locked up in there. So I thought, okay, I'll put 5% down. I'll be negative cash flow. It runs like, I think it's about $150 to $200 of negative cash flow a month. And like, that's totally manageable. I can do that. Again, I'm in the industry, so I'm very familiar with, mortgage rates and the trends and things like that. So I was like, if I refinance this year or you would hold it for one more year, that's totally fine. I did the math of, $200 times 12 months and to figure that out and add in a couple months in case there was vacancy. So I knew how much cash I had to have sitting aside. And I figured, okay, that's manageable for me to have on the side. And so it's not like I'm still using the same amount of money to put into the property over an extended period of time. So that money that I would have used if I would have put down, the 20%, 25%, I'm still having it in my bank account, just pulling like a draw, basically pulling that out and using that each month that I would need to do that. And when rates get to where I want to, I'll just refinance and then I'll be cash flow positive because that's what the trend would be on that. So for me internally, it just gave me kind of that safety net like we talk about. Everyone freaks out and panics about, okay, I'm going to put in 30,000, 40,000 into a property. That's a large chunk of money for everyone to, take out and put into a deal and hope that it goes goes well. Yeah.
So, and then I think if you run the which I know you have, you're very astute on this, but like just walking the audience through this, like running the numbers on that, even though you're maybe $150 negative cash flow because you only put 5% down on that deal, to your point, the strategy is, maybe refi at some point in the future and you'll immediately be positive. However, this allows you to own real estate where the house is appreciating, the tenant's paying the loan down, or you're getting some tax benefits and tax incentives in the meantime. Just like all that matters, right? You actually need to factor that in. I mean, even if you're $150 negative cash flow a month, that I think is, to me, because I do the same strategy as well. It's all about, optimization of capital, but that's kind of irrelevant in the big picture because your appreciation, even at a 3 or 4%, is significantly greater than that 150 of negative cash flow, right? Cash flow fluctuates in houses, but generally you're building equity over time through the tenant paying the loan down, again, tax benefits, appreciation. I mean, would you agree with that kind of strategy?
Oh, yeah, I totally do. And it's funny. I just had a call with my tax guy. I had to call him to squeeze me in before the new year because I knew he'd get too busy once the new year hit. And I was like, hey, I got a couple questions. What do I need to get in line? This is obviously my first buy and hold. What do you need? And so we talked through everything. And he talked just about that and about how, the depreciation on the property and how that's going to help you with, bringing down your taxable income and things like that. So there's a lot from it. And again, who would have thought, in 2019 that, the market was going to go crazy in 2020 and 2021. I mean, if you would have waited to purchase a property then, I mean, you're talking 20 to 50% more on a property trying to buy it now than if you would have bought it then. So you never know when it's going to spike when it comes to appreciation. So if you can afford it, it makes sense. You're not stretched too thin to where it's going to, make you panic and wake up in the middle of the night, not knowing if you can pay your bills. Yeah, I think it's a great idea to get into the market, and it's scary no matter when. And I wanted to cancel until the day that we recorded. I kept telling my wife, I was like, I'm making a mistake. She's like, no, you're not. You've done all this research. You've studied. I was like, no, this is a terrible idea. And I went and looked at forums, and forums were like, this happens to everyone. I need to just like that,
calming people to tell me like it's gonna be okay. We all go through this. It's all right.
The cold feet. Everyone gets that. And I'm glad that you called that out because I don't know how many conversations, and it's good that Tommy was a lifeline for you. I felt, really just a bit. It's about education, right? It's about calming the nerves, being analytical, and just being like, hey, we made a goal, we evaluated the numbers, we've been researching, and for a couple years, like follow through. Everyone gets the cold feet. Right? How many call down do we get? It's like, I don't know if I'm making the right choice. It's like, and sometimes that's relevant, but 99% of the time, it's just the nerves, and you got to cool that first deal. And all deals maybe for some people, but those first few, especially, you get this, concern. You just got to cool your nerves, and like you've done the research. I want to talk about the numbers, and you don't have to go too specific on this, Lawrence, but let's just throw out some general numbers just so people understand this, because I really want to hit this point home of like the big picture buy and hold real estate, especially with the scenario where you did 5% down. So, what was a general purchase price of the property?
145. That one was 145. Yeah,
145, and so 5% down. I better not do public math, but that was 7,250. You had some closing costs. Is it safe to assume like 10K plus or minus you're in?
Yeah, I think it was like right around 11 or 12 is what it came to. Yeah.
Okay, 11K, and then $150 a month is your negative cash flow times 12 is 1,800. And I know you said it was 150 to 200, so that could fluctuate. We'll call that 2,000. So $2,000 of negative cash flow per month that you bought a property with 11 or 12K all in, and $145,000 house. So even at 4% appreciation, that is $5,800, and 4% is pretty conservative. I think if we average our portfolio, we were looking at this the other day, and over the past like 10 years, we're averaging about 9% per year once you look at the fluctuation of all the markets in general. But your debt pay down, and I didn't run the amortization scale, but I'm guessing that's at least a couple K that first year in loan reduction in principal payments. So, I mean, but if you just look at that, say $6,000 roughly of appreciation of 4%, $2,000 of debt pay down, you're building $8,000 of equity, and you're offsetting, and your negative cash flow, by the way, also has tax incentives as well, right? So that's reducing your tax implication on the property and your cost basis, but you're already ahead of the game just holding the property. And then, like you said, once you refinance, when interest rates are appropriate and loan structure, whatever that is, you should immediately remove that. So I just wanted to walk people through the numbers. And if you look at your true return on investment at $11,000 or $12,000 into the property, where you're building conservatively $8,000 in equity, like regardless of the cash flow, even then you net out the negative cash flow, like that's a significant ROI. Now you don't realize it until you sell the property, refinance, something like that. But I just wanted to walk people through that. I know that you've done that research, and that's kind of draw you to that conclusion. But talk to us, and not to be too self-serving, we wanted to have you on here to talk about your experience just in real general, but rent to retirement. People are, for the listeners that haven't taken that first step, that have been on the sidelines, and like 2025 is my year to take action.
Yeah.
Give us some advice for those people, and then also just tell us a little bit more in depth about your experience working through our network. Your local team. Why'd you choose Ohio? How that's been going? Any challenges, right? And what challenges have you had? Walk us through that.
I wish I could share you the text messages and like the Instagram messages that I send to my friends and stuff like that. And they're like, how's it going out in Ohio? I was like, I wish I could like show you how easy it has been and how simple. I was like, I know it's not like this all the time. I've read stuff on the forums and there's issues here and there and things pop up. I was like, but I closed, I think on like the 30th or the 31st of October, and I had a tenant within 3 days, I think, that had signed. I was shocked. But it was another thing that company was able to do, is if you signed a property management agreement with them, they were able to market your property 2 weeks before the closing. So they already had started marketing the property, which is great because then you're ahead of the game. So you're not as worried when it comes to how many months am I going to have it vacant? Is it going to be 30 days, 60 days, 9? What does that look like? So again, when I went on, I scheduled a call with Tommy. It was really easy. We jumped on a call. He answered every single question that I have, and he was even laughing. I was like, I know this one might be a silly one, but what about this and that? And he just made me feel so comfortable. And I was like, is it really this this easy. There's no way it's this easy. He's like, look, we have a great team, and your buy box fits this, Ohio marketplace. This is why. Here's the people you want to talk to. And so I started talking to your team that you have out there. I had a call with him too, and he was a great guy, nice, super casual, didn't feel nothing stuffy, would answer the silliest questions that I had to the toughest questions that I had, and made me feel great. Never made me feel like I wasn't, didn't know anything about it or anything like that. And he also was very transparent. And if I had any issues, like in the middle of it, I got some pictures from, I believe it was the inspector when they were going through and they sent back the inspection. I said, hey, this looks like this needs to be cleaned up, but this needs to be done. He's like, not a problem. I'll take care of it. He helped me out with some people that he works closely with too out there when it comes to insurance, when it came to a good inspector that he works closely with, and got everything tied up and done smooth. I had no issues and no complaints. And I think there were a couple things that was pushed back for the closing. That might have been the only issue that I've had for some delays in the length of the escrow, but it was small stuff and it wasn't anything that caused any issues on my end. It was just a little bit delayed in whether it was materials or they needed some extra time to maybe finish something up or some weather conditions. But other than that, that's the only issue that I've had throughout the entire process was a little bit of delay on the close of escrow, which when someone's remodeling a house, it's going to happen most of the time anyway. So there's nothing to be surprised. Being through the flips, I know that like it gets pushed back. So it wasn't as surprising to me when it happened. It's not like I had carrying costs that cost me any extra money. So that was the other part. I didn't have a hard money loan on the property that I was taking care of the flip too. And when it comes to people, doing this, save up the money, get what you need to do your research, find the marketplace. And you're going to be scared to death the entire time when you're in the closing process and doing it no matter what. And it is what it is. And I thought that I would be as prepared. The flips that I'd done, I thought I'd be mentally like totally fine. No, like I told you, I was telling my wife the whole time, I was like, I'm out. I can't do this. This is a terrible idea. What are we doing with all this money? I'm going to put it in the stock market. It'll be fine. And she goes, you're doing this for a reason. This has been on your, your vision board. You've written it on our mirror. You've talked about your goals for so long. She's like, and you have the ability to do it now. She's like, do it. I trust you. And so, having, whether it's a friend, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a business partner, having someone who can tell you like, you're doing the right thing, it really, that helps and goes a long way too.
I want to talk about one of the last things you said there about, your goals, your vision board, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people laugh at me because a lot of my friends around here laugh at me because I'm a big, you got to put it out into the universe and hear what the universe says back to you, which if you'd asked me whenever I was younger, I would have told you that was just hippy dippy and not something that I do. But talk a little about, your goal setting. What are your goals for 2025? How are you able to how is doing that helping you manifest, your actual performance that you're doing?
Yeah, I've done vision boards for about 5 years now. My wife does one, I do one. We just finished ours actually last week doing them together. I don't call it a business plan anymore. I call it more my life plan, and it includes all my business stuff. So I have a section for my family, my health, my finances, my business, everything included in there because it's all encompassing, right? I don't think there's necessarily balance where everything's going to be in synchronization and the yin and the yang and it's going to feel great all the time, but there's going to be certain things you need to focus on each year that maybe it's more on the family this year, it's more on the finances this year, what it might be. So I break it down into sections, I print it out, I carry it with me, it's in my binder, I look at it throughout the week and the months to come because I tell my team all the time, look, if you make this is for yourself, send it to me so I can save a copy so we can review it, but this isn't for me, this is for you, because if you're reviewing it, you're reminding yourself of it on a regular basis, whether it's your vision board that's in your bathroom, the stuff you've written on your mirror, like it just is that constant reminder. That's not going to do it for you. That's not when it comes to, if you read, The Secret or anything like that, it's great because it reminds you of it on a regular basis, but you still have to put in the work and stuff like that. But just that reoccurring reminder of what you told yourself you were going to do, what you want to do and what you want to achieve, and having it on the forefront on a regular basis truly helps. And it's helped my mindset and develop me into what I've done over the years too.
That's awesome, Lawrence. And you've accomplished a lot. I think especially this is, we got a little bit delayed in being having the interview with you, but I think that I feel very good about that now because it's first of the year and people are just now we're interviewing at least now the first week in January. And it's a really relevant time to reflect and, the New Year's resolution things. I mean, I think that's just another thing for people to just be conscious of it. It's a good practice to have of setting goals. Yes. Right. And then discussing that with your partner and visualizing that, as Adam said, putting it out in the universe for, just even some self accountability. But talk to us about what, more in 2025 and the next 5 to 10 years looks like. And I want to hear just we do want to talk about title, but I want to get into some advice that you have for someone in your shoes pre-August. before they bought that first property. But give us some insight on more about you.
Where do you want to start on that? That was a loaded one. Where do you want me to start on that one?
I do that. Adam tells me every time I ask string questions, and then so what's okay? First 5 to 10 years from now, what does that picture look like? And that may not be that may be too far out from the vision board. I mean, I like to set goals that are like immediate in front next 90 to 180 days, but like big picture for you.
Big picture for me, I mean, the career trajectory that I'm on right now and everything, like I said, I was a sales rep. I'm a sales manager now. The next role to step into, whether it's a year or 2 years from now, would be a county manager role. So that's we running a county that I'm local in. I run the sales teams in LA County and Orange County here right now. So I run those two large counties. So it'd be stepping into one of those as a county manager would be my next goal on the career front, at least. When it comes to the homes, if possible, I would like to try and get one a year. I think it is doable, especially at this way. I know when it comes to the portfolio loans and what you can do and how many you can actually have under certain loan types, that might be limited. So I'd have to figure that part out. But I want to try and do one a year. I've already actually, this past weekend, I reached out to Tommy and Steve out in Ohio and was talking to them about some small multifamilies. So I'd like to try and do that this year. And if I can add one a year, I mean, that's beautiful. I want to have in the next 5-10 years, we want to have another baby. We have 2 now. So I have 3 kids. And we're in a little condo right now. Again, I don't want to be house poor, so I want to get something that was affordable and made sense for us and move into a larger house that might be, I don't know if it'll be the forever home, but it would be the next step, obviously. But continue that journey and continue, again, investing in real estate and see how many of these doors that we can pile up if one a year is possible. And if we stay in this market, or we're big Disney people. So, if we build up a thing here, then maybe we end up doing some 1031 exchanges and getting some stuff down in Florida, because that'll help our trips to Orlando. But something like that. That's kind of the goal. My wife keeps telling me, are we going to get some stuff in Florida so we can go down there more often? So we'll probably end up doing something like that along the way. And they have good tenant laws, obviously, which is helpful down there. So, yeah.
I love that. One a year. Perfect. Is there a number in terms of net worth? And it's okay if there's not, but as far as like net worth or passive income that you want to achieve at some point?
There is a number. Someone asked me this a couple years ago, actually, when I sat down and was talking to him, and he's like, what's the number? And it would be, I look at it more so if you pulled off 4% of it a year. So it would have to be, I mean, I'd have to do the math on what it would be like from having a doors perspective and how many that would be. But I would love to have a net worth that was able to pull off 4% a year that was 25 million. I think that would be amazing, because that would give me the life I want and then some, I think, in my eyes. And so you're chasing this number to try and get to whatever it might be. So I don't know if that's necessarily the answer, but in my mind, when I look at 25, that's kind of that number that I'm like, I could take care of my kids, their colleges, live a fun life and travel. And we love Hawaii. We love Disney. Like I said, this wouldn't put any hindrances or any, guardrails on that type of stuff. But again, for every level, there's another, you look at the next one ahead of you. So you got to be careful.
Be careful. As you have more kids, your net worth's going to have to get higher and higher. And you're going to end up at 30, 35 if you keep having kids. So.
Yeah, and Adam's speaking from experience, by the way, Lawrence. I think he's up to 7.5 kids or something, but but I will say too, though, on that point, like, and it's hard to realize this when you're younger and you're just getting started, or I shouldn't say younger because age is irrelevant, but when you're first like getting into this trajectory, it's really it's slow, and it's like, how am I ever going to get there? But there is an exponential growth, this hockey stick growth where it's like, you reach your goals very quickly in a short period of time, but it doesn't start out that way. But you have to take those initial steps to get on that momentum and that trajectory, right? Just like owning real estate. If you look at it, is a compounding effect over time of the growth in equity, using leverage appropriately. Like, the first few years is slow, but if you can start it, that's the hardest point for people. That's the hardest point. So that was the next question I wanted to kind of ask you, is advice that you have for someone that was in your shoes, 6-12 months ago. Like, give us some advice there, Lawrence.
I think it's doing the research. It's that builds your confidence, because a lot of times we're not confident because we don't know enough about a certain topic or subject. If someone asks you to get up and speak on something, maybe it's health and fitness, maybe it's real estate, maybe it's whatever it might be, technology. If you don't know enough about it, you're not confident in your ability to speak on it or to do anything about it. And if someone asks you a tough question, all of a sudden you're caught off guard and you're stumbling up there. So do the research, whether it's the books, whether it's the podcast. There's so much content that's out there. And I think it's funny. I was sitting next to my wife in bed the other night, and we're sitting there, we put the kids down, we want to do some mindless scrolling, and she's over there watching something on TikTok, and she looks over and I'm on ChatGPT trying to understand what quantum computing is and understand where I can invest in it, and she goes, we're on 2 different wavelengths. She's like, this is hilarious. But my point is that there's so much out there for us that's free, that's that you can learn whatever you want. It's called YouTube University for a reason. Anything that you want to learn is now at your fingertips. We're in one of the best times to figure anything out. Don't waste it. And yeah, have fun, enjoy life. But also, like, if you want to do something big, you have the ability to do so and do as much research as you want and figure things out.
Okay, I love that. Go ahead,
I want to talk. You gave advice to people who are looking to get in, but what advice would you give to people who are in the process right now? You mentioned kind of getting the cold feet while you're going through it and all of that. So every time I buy a property, you get the inspection report back, and your first glimpse at it, you're just like, holy crap, why would anybody ever buy this house, right? Because the inspector has to make you feel terrified so they can justify the money that you just paid them. But what about during the process? What advice would you give to people who are going step by step and starting to be like, oh man, is this the right choice as they're going through it?
Yeah, I think like when you're talking about the inspection report, when I got it first back and I had to look through everything, I was like, what are these? There's an exclamation point on this one, there's a red circle on this one. What does this all mean? And take your time, read through it. Just take it step by step, read through it, ask the questions. And there's people there to help you. Again, if you're going through rent to retirement, obviously you can reach out to someone who you're involved with, whoever your person is that's helping you out through that process. But the teams that you guys have set up, these aren't, Joe Schmo off the street. These are people that you guys have vetted that are trustworthy, good people. Call them and ask them the questions. I had some conversations with, Steve out there. I was like, hey, can you take care of this? And can you take care of that? He said, not a problem. I'll take care of it. It's easy to do. So like you have good people there. So again, this goes back to finding your people that you trust. If you're doing something separate on your own, find those good people that like, and trust out in the area too, that you can rely on and have good reputations, whether you're going on Bigger Pockets or you're going on the Facebook groups and you're going into different real estate investing groups for your certain marketplace and you want to post a comment on there, you'll get a bunch of DMs as soon as you ask someone who can help me, purchase a property or be a lender out in this area, and then probably more than you can answer. So, find people that you can trust. And again, if you're going through rent to retirement, you guys have those people and just ask the question. There's no silly question. Everybody went through this for a first time at some point. And so everything that you're going through, someone else's experience. If you feel better and you want to look it up on a forum, you can find a ton of those too. There's a lot of things out there to help you and calm your nerves.
I love that. Ask questions, do the research, build the team. And certainly, and thank you for mentioning that, because that's exactly what our goal is, right? Is to be intricately involved to answer every single question.
Yeah.
And every question that you get answered, you're a more savvy and sophisticated investor that will ultimately lead you to be more successful long term. Lawrence, let's give you a quick fire round between Adam and I on title, because we really haven't had someone talk too much about title, but it's an intricate part of every transaction. So like, let's just start fundamentally, like, what is title and what is the purpose and what's the importance of having like clear title? People know that they close with a title company and they have title insurance, but like, give us an overview of like kind of the purpose of title and things that people should be paying attention to.
Title is making sure that when I purchase a property from Joe, that Joe really is the seller, that there's no underlying issues or anything like that that's going to pop up when I purchase the property. So whether it is, a lien that's on the property for a mechanic's lien. So maybe someone didn't pay somebody and there was some work done on the property, and so they put a lien on the property. Maybe there is a taxes or things like that. Maybe there is an easement maybe that someone's, right away is across your property, or maybe there's something hanging over onto your property that you weren't aware of, or there's a fence line issue. Title really does all the curative work at the beginning to make sure that you're going to get a clear title, which means that everything's okay. You don't have to worry about any different legal issues or anything like that when you take ownership of the property. It's free and clear of any prior loans or anything like that. And so you can own the property and you feel good to know that you're covered if anything is to pop up too, because some of the policies cover post-policy issues too. So things like that can pop up, that you're getting a property that's truly yours and there's not going to be any other ramifications afterwards.
Is there any good due diligence you can do to make sure that the information title's giving you is accurate? Any like quick, easy places to go?
Well, there are some stuff, but when you get the preliminary title report is the title report that you get. That's going to be the most in-depth report that you can pull. You can there's stuff from the county records and things like that, but the preliminary title report is what they're insuring and what they see. So when they give you that, you can call into my title company and say, hey, do you see any issues on this property? There's some stuff they can see at the surface level of the property, but the title report itself is going to give you the most in-depth look at what's going on with the property. So getting one of those reports is the best way to do it. You can purchase one of those if you want just by themselves, or if you're doing an actual transaction, the cost of that is folded into the title insurance itself.
Title insurance, what is it? Is it necessary?
I think it's necessary. And I mean, we see it on about
I would say probably 98% of homes are getting title insurance. And it's just because if something comes up, like we're seeing a lot of these with attorneys right now are trying to do what's called an attorney opinion letter because they're trying to say that title insurance might not be necessary. There's an excess in costs. They're trying to say that, hey, we'll take a look at title. We'll pull one of these reports, see where it's at, and give you a guarantee that everything's okay and you can take ownership and title. But there's no insurance then if something is to happen post policy or afterwards. So once you close on the property, you don't have any insurance. Whereas with us, let's say there is someone signed for the property, but it's not theirs, and was actually some forgery was done on some deeds saying that they were the owner, but they're not the owner. Well, if you have the right title insurance, it'll cover those issues and your legal fees up to a certain dollar amount, depending on what it is. Maybe there was, again, a boundary issue like we talked about, and it was off and there's a discrepancy and, an issue between you and your neighbor. Well, your title insurance is going to help cover that up to a certain amount also when it comes to your legal fees. And we call those claims. So that's the nice part about title insurance is it's a one-time fee. It's not a continuous fee that you pay over years, like if it's auto insurance or anything like that. It's a one-time fee that when it comes down to the grand scheme of things, if there is a legal issue, is a very small fee that you pay in order to cover yourself for any of these issues that come up.
How often would you say title issues actually come up on properties?
So there's a couple differences. So a claim happens, I forget the exact number on a claim, but there was the percentage of that, but claims happen multiple times throughout the year, throughout our county. But if it is like a title issue, so like I'm talking about, maybe it's taxes or mechanics lien, or there needs to be an affidavit of death filed because someone had passed away, or the property's in a trust, so we need to review the trust. Those happen for a lot of transactions, especially right now with the way interest rates are. We have a lot of people that the reason they're selling is because of the death, the divorce, the bankruptcies, the different issues like that. So the tough deals are happening right now because a lot of people are holding on to their low interest rates and they only want to move if they necessarily have to. So we're seeing a lot of messy deals come up to where there is a lot of work that has to be done on the front end in order to clean it all up to make sure that Adam does get a clean title on his purchase of his property. So that happens a lot. The claims, very less frequent on it because all the curative work that we do up front. But those do happen again from time to time. I don't have an exact number on it though.
Yeah, and I know that lenders require title insurance as well. They want to make sure that it's free and clear. Lawrence, I guess let's talk about LLCs real quick. Kind of last questions from me on title would be, common question is, do I have to close? And this is a lender question. If you're going a conventional route, you usually have to close in your own name. You can do quick claim deeds to your LLC post closing. Let's talk about that specific process. Is that common? Is that something you typically see and recommend, or just personal opinion?
It's person to person. It depends. And again, it depends a lot on the lender too. Does the lender have a due upon sale clause, which most obviously loans are going to have that in it, but some lenders are very strict and they're like, hey, if we see this, and they strictly say like, if we see this, then we will, the loan comes due. So there's that you always have to be worried about. From a title side of things, we have, at least on our side, we have two different types of policies. We have a standard policy and then our premium policy. Our premium policy, we don't normally close those in an LLC. We do a standard policy for an LLC just for liability purposes. So most time when someone's in an LLC, they'll get a standard policy over the premium one, which the premium one has a few more extended coverages. You can purchase some extra endorsements to add into your coverage on a standard policy. So it's possible, but most of the time, again, if the investors are closing an LLC, you're not seeing, me and my wife closing an LLC. Most of the time it's in our trust, if it's our primary residence, obviously. But they can do either down at the county, they can do a recording, they can run through a title company and pay, do an accommodation recording is what it's called, to switch it up post-close. But it depends. It depends on the own person and what they're doing with the property themselves. If it has to be an LLC for, again, tax purposes or their corporation, things like that too.
Yeah. And it should be your title insurance and your title fees should be certainly a business expense as well. Just throw that in there on the tax side. So,
all right. Well, Lawrence, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I think this is going to be phenomenal for new investors, older investors, aspiring investors, all of those people. It's been absolutely phenomenal to hear your story. If you want to, start talking to the investment strategists, such as Tommy, like he was talking about, you can head on over to renttoretirement.com. That's renttoretirement.com. And if you have any questions for future episodes that you want Zach and myself to answer, or if you want to come on and tell your story, feel free to email podcasts@renttoretirement.com. That's podcasts@renttoretirement.com. And we will get back with you either on an episode or straight via email. So you can email that to podcasts@renttoretirement.com. You can see all of the inventory as well that Lawrence talked about at renttoretirement.com, right there on the on the website, really easy to find. To everybody else, thank you so much for listening today. We hope you set a lot of goals and accomplish them in 2025 and beyond. And thanks for spending the time educating yourselves today. We'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.